and welcome again to Testify. Today, we're going to talk to one of my awesome friends, Lorna Johnson out of New Jersey. Lorna is the principal of Global Leakage, a managing consulting firm. And this consulting firm has a particular focus in organizations which include international and global interests. And one of my main things I love about Lorna, we're going to talk about this morning, is all the work that she does with Africa. She has had extensive training, extensive travel to West and South Africa, and she brings all that back to her community and shares the culture with her community. So we're going to talk to Lorna this morning about how she came to create Global Linkage and some of the work that Global Linkage is doing. So welcome, Lorna K. Johnson, principal of Global Linkage, to Testify. Thank you. Welcome, Lorna. Welcome. Good morning, Lorna. How are you?
All right, Nona, how are you?
I am doing so good. I am so glad that you agreed to talk to us on Testify this morning. I know you are a very, very busy woman. So for you to give us an hour of your time is just an honor. And we are so pleased that you took the time to do that. So how have you been? How was 2020 for you?
2020 was rough.
It was rough for a lot of us.
Yeah, very rough. And as you know, I live in the New York City area, in New Jersey. So, we were one of the first to be hit with the pandemic. So that was kind of traumatic. I knew at least 20 people, particularly between March and May, who passed on. Good friends, some distant relatives, luckily. So, and because of the work that I do and the life that I lead, having me just sequestered for a number of months was quite challenging. We were able, thank goodness, to go to South Africa in February, but we got back right before they closed the doors.
Oh, so, yeah, y'all got back right in time. Y'all
right in time. I mean, literally
nowhere land.
Yeah, literally a week. I was at a board meeting of an organization I'm active in, actually, and my birthday is March 12th. So if you remember, that's the date many places started closing. So, and then from a business side point, because we work in much of the work we do, I should say, is, not all, but predominantly is in international travel. So that was slammed. So it was rough. And then, as you well know, I came with a physical ailment. So everything just kind of threw itself in 2020. But, like all things, I persevered, as we all do. And we're really starting in many ways, physically, the business, and other aspects of my life are kind of slowly turning around.
Yeah, I think it's at the point now where everybody is trying to get back to normal. 2020 was good for some people. One thing about it, you were home, so you had time to heal spiritually and physically and emotionally without having to worry about a lot of work and travel and everything. But we're going to get to know Lorna K. I'm gonna call you Lorna K.
That's what the people call me.
So we're gonna get to know Lorna K a little bit. So you were raised up in New York, New Jersey area, and went to school there?
No, not at all. I'm a bona fide, and I claim it. I'm one of the few people that people say that they know that was born and raised in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
I'm a fourth generation Washingtonian, proudly. Both my parents and on my father's side, both his mother and his grandmother, my great-grandmother, are Washingtonians. And then on my mother's side, like many people in the Great Migration, they came from West Virginia, Okay. So I spent many summers, probably up until I'm 12, because I'm not really a pure country girl, going to West Virginia and what we all know is Appalachia. So that's really, I ended up in the New York and New Jersey for college. I went to undergrad in Long Island because my parents were so deathly afraid of me wanting to go to school in New York City, the big bad city, even though they knew the city. And then I went to law and graduate school here in New Jersey and kind of just stayed.
Okay, so when you went to school, I know you went to your undergraduate, and you got your law degree. Is is being a lawyer, is that what you wanted to be? Or how did you come to creating your own business? Is that what you always wanted to have, your own business?
Like a lot of people, I was programmed to think professionally. I'm fortunate
Mhm.
uh, to come from a family, particularly in the 70s and 80s, where my father had a graduate degree. So, as a Black person, I was he actually was an economist.
Yeah, that's fortunate.
So I knew the numbers, and as everybody knew I had, or said I had the gift of gab. And it was something, particularly, growing up in the 60s, the 70s, 80s, that drew me to wanting to make change.
Mhm.
And even though I went to a predominantly white institution, I ran the Black Student Union. I was very much involved. I was an RA. So, being a
You were
lawyer is
purposely placed.
yeah, purposely placed,
Purposely
and
placed.
having a little rallies and things of that sort. So, without really being exposed, I didn't know that many lawyers. I knew other professions. I applied because I was driven to do something. And but it was quickly I realized in law school, and particularly in Newark, that practicing law, defending or prosecuting cases really wasn't in my soul.
Yeah.
And I fortunately, like many people, and if I had to do it again, I probably would have worked before law school. Many people, take time off.
Mhm.
I went straight, so I was very young. And then, to be honest with you, being exposed to a new city, Newark was going through some dramatic changes. It was only 15 years after rebellion. And I quite frankly grew up, very well placed and supported. I wouldn't say privileged, but taken
Mhm.
care of. And then
Yeah.
growing up in DC, so it was kind of, I wouldn't say traumatic, but
Mhm.
being there was different for me. But it was all about social change. But luckily, I was offered a fellowship, thanks to a good friend who I still keep in touch with, to become an urban planner. And I didn't know what an urban planner was. I hadn't been exposed
I
to
wouldn't
it.
have known what that was either.
Yeah,
They
but
were
they
like,
were
urban what?
offering to pay for school.
Yeah.
But it did mean spending another year after law school. And I really think getting that, because at that time I was taking out loans and whatever other means, my parents, helped substantially for, undergrad, and becoming aware what urban planners do, even though they do physical changes in design, it really helped me to see. And I became friends, and the dean. This is why it's important to have people that look like us to care for you. And I've always had that. And so we know, when I grew up, DC was called the Chocolate City. So not only did I have family, I said then, now it's kind of changing, but all
Yeah.
through my life, I've had what I consider angels. Most of them are African American and Black, but I've had a couple, particularly when we moved to Prince George's County, a white music teacher. But the dean of the minority students, when he and I were doing a fundraiser, asked, what I was doing. I was working in New York, like many young people now, going to Brooklyn. He said, well, I may want you to come work for the Urban League. So I said, okay, first of all, it's going to be closer to home because commuting to New York in that time. But anyway, make a long story even longer, the day that I arrived. So he asked me to come to be the deputy director. The Urban League in Essex County, New Jersey, was one of the oldest in the country. But he, unbeknownst to me, was being asked to be to work for the governor of New Jersey at that time. With one of our former laws. So the first day I got in, he announced his resignation. So, and that was very disconcerting, because even though I can run organizations and run things, high school, law school, and basically the board told me, well, if you don't run for the CEO, then you're not going to have a job. So,
It was set up.
yeah, I was kind of,
It was set up.
so, I did, and kind of took by the bootstrap. And,
Yeah.
if you know anything about the Urban League, they have a process.
Mhm.
They didn't think I had that much experience, but the board really liked my energy and my youthfulness. I was actually under 30 years old at that time.
Oh, okay.
And through a competitive, and I shouldn't say this, one of my, I wouldn't say competitors, but we're colleagues, was the current lieutenant governor of New Jersey, who's, one of the first African-American women, Sheila Oliver, as well as another colleague now who's moved to Charleston. But I say all that is that they believed in me. I mean, I still needed a lot of experience, but, ignorance is bliss. I was able to get some national headlines because I was one of the youngest directors of an urban league to run at that size. It was 1.5 million, but back in the 90s and 80s, that was a lot of money. So I got some press from Ebony, so it helped. But still, I wasn't the perfect candidate if I look back now. Yeah. But I did provide energy, and it led to other things. So, part of what you're saying about a testimony, you kind of went out in faith. Luckily, both my parents, who unfortunately have passed now, were able to witness that and see that, and they were able to enjoy, me being in that position as well as the next one I had. So that kind of helped me to get engaged in this, city and town now. So I've actually lived in New Jersey longer.
Foundation. Yeah, you had, it was a setup for a foundation for somebody who was going far in that line of work. So after that, you didn't do your law degree, but you did that. So how did you get into the international stuff?
Well, after the Urban League, I was there for 4.5 years. Another colleague who I didn't know it very well at that time, from law school, who was very active in politics, and I wasn't, and became the mayor of the city of East Orange. Now, the city of East Orange, where I still even live, is a very, very small city, but home rule is very important to New Jersey. So they had seen what I had done with the Urban League and invited me because he knew I had that planning background as well as my law degree to become the city's director of planning and development, which I functioned basically as a deputy mayor. So I spent 2 terms with him, and I really will say, because of his leadership style, Cardell Cooper, and we're still friends to this day, that he basically, for the most part, let me do what I wanted to do, and I utilized the city as a canvas to engage. It's a predominantly African-American city. And at that time, which leads to the international, as many cities, we had a growing African population. And part of my job was to make sure all communities, we still do have a very large Caribbean community. We have a very large Haitian. So a woman who had a dress shop, actually, and it was very popular, came to me to say, we're bringing a queen mother. Now, at that time, as quote unquote, as educated, so to speak, as I was, I did not really understand or appreciate. This is back in 91, 92. And that would you host, as cities do, they host dignitaries. And we also have relationship, which going forward, I'm very engaged now with what we call sister cities. So in your area, Durham, you have, I know it has many sister cities. So we hosted this queen mother, who actually became very close to me, with all its gold and grandeur and all the things you kind of think of a traditional, African event for the African community, but also for the general public, because people were not as aware. And part of that was, in my work, where can we put trade with this? Where can we do business? So we invited the state and involved, and I'm still colleagues with him, and we decided to have our mayor and the governor, because he was close at the time, to have our mayor in the next year to lead the first trade mission to Africa from the state of New Jersey. And I served as the senior staff person. So in September 93, we had our first trade mission for the state. Actually, all the state trade missions for Africa I've been involved with. And we had over 54 people. And I went earlier and we had to convince, because we remember we're talking city and public monies in July. I had never been to Africa before. And we went and we had over 22 meetings in 7 days. I mean, we were working it. And even though my colleagues were tired, I was determined to go to the slave castle dungeon. I just couldn't see.
Yeah.
But I remember, as many people, and that's why I enjoy what I do, just being just culturally overwhelmed, so to speak, in a great way. Just excited, you know, the smell, the taste, the feel, the warmth. And that really tipped me, to be honest with you. And during that time, when we were still in office, we had student exchanges. I led another delegation in '97 where we became friends with the first lady of the country. And so when we left government, my boss went to work for the second term of President Clinton. That's how far back it is. I decided, well, I had some job offers and opportunity, but I want to start my business. So I really was crazy then. Now, you know, because I had one country, you know, I did have 2 clients. I had a church and a business, and all of them didn't pan out. But, you know, but I stuck to it.
Yeah, and that's how most of the time it is with first time business. If it's in your passion, you're gonna have some ups and downs. And I think if you have a passion for the motherland, it starts early. You don't really know where it comes from, but it just starts early because you know I've always wanted to go to Africa. Now I'm a little girl, I'm a country girl. I'm a little country girl from Johnson County. And we worked in the fields and everything. Now, where I got that desire to go to the motherland, I don't know. I just always wanted to go. But it took years before I was able to go. And, you know, of course, the first time I went with you. And you know, and I just fell in love with it. And I think a lot of people would engage that passion and check into it if they kind of understood a little bit more about how it's not that difficult to go to Africa. It's not that expensive to go to Africa. You just need to plan and have connections like people like you.
Right. And I think engaging, you know, as I matured, I think engaging in passion, and I'm so glad that we're connected because the work you've done in South Africa, I have a few people who just have taken it and run with it. And you're one, and you're a shining example of that. But I think being free is luckily for me, I came from a family that loved, and I should even say adored me, and my sister too. I'm not an only child, and came from a community of Black folks that were working people, but who took pride. And I do think being in DC, where everybody that we had, whether it was my dentist, my doctor, of course, I grew up in the AME church, everybody looked like me in beautiful shades. So and then when I went to college, I've surrounded myself. So that passion comes of being free, knowing even if you fail, you know, that you had some type of either, in some ways, financial backup, but psychological and support. Because I will say, but my parents thought I was crazy, you know, working in Africa in the beginning days. They were like, you know, we this money.
The first time I said I was going.
And Black people kind of struggle with Africa. Yeah, we're getting better. You know, Black people still have, and let's be honest, there's still some tension. And I work in that space between, you know, African Americans and continental Africans. I think it's getting better because of global and technology. But, you know, Africans have these predisposition knowledge about us. You know, they even have names that they call us. And then we have predispositions. I've heard ignorantly, you know, African Americans, Africans about, you know, whether they live in trees, you know, ignorant things like that. So we still have a way to go, but I do think it's really, really getting a little bit closer now.
Yeah, and a lot of the media and the nonprofits, when the church, and not saying anything bad about it, but when they show Africa, they don't show the best part of Africa.
Right.
The missions go, they show the worst part, the children and all that. And so once you see so much of that, that's how that when you say Africa, that's what you picture.
And Africa is not monolithic. It's 54 countries. As you know, and as you will know, when we go to Morocco, and then when you eventually go to Ghana and West Africa, Southern Africa, particularly South Africa, and even some people say it's Africa light. It's not. It's just different. Looks different than Kenya,
Yeah.
and it looks and feels different than West Africa. So to put it in a box, just like I have a bag that says Africa is not an island. It's not a country, it's a continent that has all different unique components. But I do think my love of Black people, I'm talking about Black Americans and being rich in a culture. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't go, as I now consider, South, meaning Atlanta and North Carolina, until I was actually in college, because my Southern roots, if you put it, is West Virginia, and that's a little different. You know what I'm saying?
A little different.
Yeah, but I didn't have, I mean, I'm in it. So, but I think all of that, and the pride and the energy, my parents were very much involved, that kind of, now that I'm older, dignity really gives you a sense of self and love.
And it's totally different, because you were up north, what we considered up north, with the city people and the people that's going and right. We were down here in the South. Just like you didn't come south,
right?
We go north.
Right.
We had our vision and thoughts of people, because when they came back down, the ones that migrated to the north, to DC and New York, when they came back down, we were like, oh, they're city folks.
Right.
You can tell them from us, we're looking at them like, oh, they're city folks, and they looking at us like these country folks. But it's the way you was raised up and how you look at life. It's your trajectory, where you go, and so we just didn't go up north that much, and so we weren't we I guess our dreams and visions weren't as wide as some of the other people dreams and visions could be. And so you had to really, if you were here, you had to really want to get out of Johnson County, or really want to get out of Wake County. You had to really want to see something different and see the world, because I still got family members that have no desire to see anything out of North Carolina.
Me too.
But then have someone like me who joined the military and got to see.
You were exposed
so much more than what we're used to. And
if I can,
you want to see everything. I look at it as, I want to see everything God created.
Right.
He created some beautiful landscapes, some beautiful people. I just want to see it all. And I can't see it all, but I want to see it all.
And I became, grown in DC as a very strong Black community with different communities, very impoverished, but very strong middle class, largely because people work for the government. My father and mother at times both, my father worked consistently for the government, but I just felt when I was ready to go to college, I was so rooted in my own identity. I mean, I wasn't able to articulate it like that now, but and that I was okay going to a white school because my Blackness and identity was coming with me.
Right.
And so when I came to New York, which was, even though I had been to New York many times, because we came here for family and for Broadway plays, I bought it wherever. But then I was exposed to people from the Caribbean and exposed to people from the continent of Africa. So we developed our own identity. Now, everybody in my family went to Howard, including my parents. So as though I really identify and I love and I appreciate anybody who's had a historical Black community, college or university experience, I'm still okay because my Blackness, was with me. And then there were others, to do that too. But that was a personal choice, I didn't go to a white school to become white. I went to a white school for them to understand and appreciate my Blackness. And,
I'm proud.
Right. And they did. They did.
But I mean, it's a blessing to have been raised up in that culture, to experience and to think about Black culture and your Blackness in that time. So many other people didn't have a chance to experience that feeling and that love and that education about Blackness and who you are and where you stand in society at that time, that it was so important to know who you were and what Blackness meant.
So the work that we do now with global linkages as like I said, as I mature, is really a reflection of all of that.
Yeah.
The work that we do, most people know us as a high end, travel, but I'm really comfortable in saying that the work we do is to serve people of color on both sides of the ocean.
Right.
And that doesn't mean we don't welcome other people and that we hadn't had other people to travel with us, but I feel a certain caretaking role to provide what I've been exposed to and been gifted, because it really is a gift to have
Right.
traveled to the continent, hundreds of times now in about 25 years, to share that. I think as spiritual and religious people, God wants us to share our gifts. If we
Right.
can say that's a gift. So I kind of look at that as my mission for the business, in understanding our culture, but also sharing and in some ways interpreting Africa so people can meet in both ends.
Right. And that's the amazing thing about you. You have the gift, you have the business. You don't have to give back. You could just be in the money making process, but you have that desire for your people to share what you have learned and what you have seen and the culture and everything. And that's why you started the tours, which is so great. And then when you say, I'm going to Africa, I'm going to Africa, so many people say, oh, I want to go, I want to go, I want to go, but trying to convince them, that it's not a far-fetched dream. You can go and you really need to go. How do you do that?
Well, the best examples are people like you, and that people see regular folks, because we're regular folks,
Yeah.
who do it. You didn't get sick,
Didn't have to take 1,000 shots.
shots. Yeah, you only really need to take one or really two now with COVID. But I think a part of that secret that's good for me is where I do live. Living in the New York City area is extremely multicultural from all over the world. So you have that constant personalities, I should say, of people traveling, not just from the diplomatic corps, but people. I mean, New York City is the gateway to the US, in many ways to the world. So that makes it easier. But my best success is really people coming and sharing. So as you know, and we also have pods, you and your sister and your cousin, so we've developed through the years relationships with groups. Wow. And like you said, folks. So I'll give you an example. I have a very strong family out of Pittsburgh, and even the leader lives in Cincinnati. So, we're launching East Africa next year. Mm-hmm. So they got 10 people and they would have had 15, because now other people who wouldn't have thought it have seen them come back. Right. So that's what kind of happens, and they have a good time. So we do, as you know, we celebrate people's birthdays on the on Experience. Let's be honest, traveling to Africa, it's not like going to the Caribbean, right. As far as cost, mm-hmm. Even if you do it, low end. So I think we really put in some time. We're going to be doing some things on the Morocco trip that you haven't been exposed. I want you to be surprised.
Don't destroy my surprise.
Yeah. So it's really loving the people who are on your experience, and they're not just clients. There are people that you care about. So right. You want them to be healthy, happy, and have for many people on different is a bucket list experience. Then as well as where we go, showing the reality. Now, you don't go to Africa and act like it's Beverly Hills in some place, although it is. Mm-hmm. So we really think about how we can give a very wide perspective and let people make their decisions on, how they do. So that's how we get. And then what we do is almost, in some ways, I wouldn't call it pyramid. Even though we market, I'm changing or improving my website. You haven't seen, which I'll share you, the East Africa flyer. We have a new person. She's African American, but she lives in Italy. and she's doing our new brochures. And she's a younger woman who's helping young girls, particularly young girls of color, to think about travel. So when you surround yourself with people of that energy, you can't help but having, the best. So that's how we do. So our East Africa trip, which I hope, you'll go on in future, is sold out, because as you know, people are dying to get out, but they want to do it when it's safe.
Right.
And I think most people feel comfortable for next year.
Right. So right now, Lorna, we're going to take a short commercial break, and then we're going to come back, and I want you to talk about some specific areas in South Africa or West Africa, or just Africa, areas in Africa particularly that you really like, the places that you like to go, or that you can recommend people to go, or just talk about some of the places that you've already been. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, so welcome back, Lorna.
Thank you, Nona.
For the second half of the interview, we're going to talk about some of your favorite places in Africa and why.
Okay.
I know, let me say right quick, I know I went to Jamestown, Cape Town, and those are probably the only two that I've been to right now. I'm going to Morocco,
right.
But I know you've been to Durban. I haven't been there. So between Cape Town and Joburg, I still like Joburg. Cape Town was just like going to a city. The vineyard was the vineyard that we went to was beautiful, and that was different and everything. But I kind of like Joburg and the areas that we went to because I got to really experience the people. And of course, I go to Orange Farm, which is the
daycare.
Yeah, which is where the daycare is, and it's a township. And so I get a chance to really live with the people there. But what are some of your favorite places to go to on the continent?
Well, I definitely have favorite places when in, because people ask me that all the time, why don't I, well, it serves me to still live in the States, to be dual. So I know this sounds like not a good answer, but I really love everywhere we go and work. And that even includes now, and when hopefully President Biden lifts up the former Obama, because we're still under the former president's rules for Cuba. I had to be asked to go to Cuba. Not that, I wasn't anti going to Cuba, but once I was there and worked it, and even that's really the only place that we work outside the continent, I became in love with the culture and their diligence, especially the Afro-Cubans. So I say all that to say that, of course, working in Ghana since the beginning and being to Ghana over 150 times, you can't help, it's home to me, but so much now of my life and work is tied to Southern Africa and South Africa. So there are places within each of these places, and even in Morocco, we have partners now, and as we move. So I have activities. As you know, we really are committed to having community partners and letting people see how folks, deal with challenges, because that's important. And just as important, in all of our experience, we're working with a clinic in Arusha that the lead people are from your area. They're from Durham, so it's a sister cities. Durham is sister cities with Arusha, Tanzania, so because I know them, I want to support them. So there's different. Cape Town for me is also magical, and I should say, since you've gone, we got new things going on. We also work with a Black winery, a Black women's owned winery now.
Wow.
And people really connect with that. And she actually sells some of her products here in the US. So that's important. So everyone, and I'm with you with Joburg. Joburg shows how South Africa has progressed since
Right.
the change. And it's a Black city. Let's call it what it is,
Right.
and it has that energy and vibe. So I get that feeling, but I also feel, Cape Town is physically beautiful and it's the best. And as you said, once you'll go to Durban, Durban's on the water. I'm a water baby.
Yeah.
So all of these places, even Morocco, I had to be, I'm kind of driven by people requests. I said, I had been working in Morocco. I had been to Morocco, but I kept getting this pressure, well, when you going to go to Morocco? So I said, okay, let's look at it. And even though it has a different feel and a different flavor. One of the things I think as a Christian, I think I have a much better appreciation for the Islamic culture, because I think in the US, we see it in one way,
Right.
and where when we go there, it's a much more culture. So Morocco has helped me to do that on top of the beauty. And like many people, even though I'm trying to be rehabilitated, I'm a shopper.
See, I'm not. You always know. I'm like, well, I'm not big on shopping. Where can I go sit or where?
Yeah, but there's plenty of sites. So I think each place for me has a lot of magical moments.
It does, and the people are so magical.
Right,
that's where I get my my joy for. The people are so they're just so happy and pleasing and
accommodating too.
Yeah, they're very accommodating and humble, and I guess they're humble from where they come from because they got a long way to go, but they're not where they used to be, and they appreciate that they're not where they used to be.
And we utilize.
We go to Soweto to eat, but so I don't know. I think I've been once during the day to the market, once at night to eat. Is that like a small town or city that we can compare to?
Soweto?
Yeah.
I compare Soweto to Harlem. Okay. It really is. Even, we know most of us, and because you've been there, Nelson Mandela did not grow up in the Johannesburg. He came from the Eastern Cape, as well as Winnie did. But it's the heart and soul of Black culture, as I see it, in South Africa, as well as the youth rebellion on June 16th, 1976, where unfortunately the first youth, was shot and killed, began there. So it does have a richness. Bishop Tutu also has a home there, although he spends most of his time because his coverage was Cape Town. So I think Soweto, we have several partners, in Soweto, including, Orange Farm came out. I don't know if you remember, people left Soweto to go to Orange Farm because they were told that there was work to be done to pick orange trees. And what happened? Of course, it didn't happen, because people need it. So it has so much. And as much as I've been to these places, of course, I've been to, Ghana the most, and then South Africa about 40 or 50 times now, I still learn something new. And I learned something about the culture, about the people, about something new, and that's the magic. And I think people with our tours kind of feel that energy. You can't get excited about a trip unless people are excited who are offering, well, you can go here. No, we don't talk like that. No. And then we begin to engage people early on, as on how they can get excited, because studies say that part of the experience of traveling, doesn't matter where you're going, is the planning of it. Right. So people can start, connecting. So we just got that. I'll be happy that we're going to share next week. Everything, as is electronic. We have these wonderful, colorful electronic books on the 3 main cities you're going to be going into Morocco. So at your leisure, you can decide to read about Casablanca, you can read about Marrakesh, where most people, and particularly read about Fez, because that's kind of the spiritual center for the country as well. So being connected electronically now has kind of helped us. We don't have to use faxes anymore or paper.
So one thing you said, I want you to try to explain to those who don't understand, when you said they're sister cities with, like you said, okay, explain that.
So around the world, there are opportunities for cities to be twin. The Europeans say twin. And in the US, we have what we call sister cities. I happen to be on the board of Sister Cities International, which is based in DC, that supports local networks. So US cities can become partners with cities anywhere they want, as long as the two cities agree. And this is normally started by the current mayor once it's signed. So in the US, we have over 2,500 sister cities partnership. And many of these partners can start with, sometimes you have the community. So when I was in government, going back to my roots, we had a sister cities with the community that the business owner had from Ghana. So we supported in that relationship, we supported a clinic. And I'm happy to report I still support the clinic. There's Sister Cities doesn't exist, but the clinic, we had a student exchange, we did social entrepreneur. So when cities come together, they can decide to do municipal. So I'm just using your community in Durham. I think you have about 7 different ones around the world, Japan, as I mentioned, Arusha in Tanzania. You also have a staff person. And it's a way of promoting what we call citizen diplomacy. You know, people in the State Department, you know, they're the official, but all of us, it doesn't matter what our roles are in life, can be citizen diplomats as well as others. So it's a way really to create peace building. It was founded by President Eisenhower after World War II. So we still have the most sister cities around the US with places like France, Japan, and Germany. So I'm the person who's responsible for making sure and supporting these networks in Africa. We're actually having a conference in 2023. Now, Africa only has about a little over 100 US Africa sister cities. So Cape Town is sister cities with Miami-Dade. And if you know Miami, if you think about Miami, it has a port. It kind of feels like Cape Town, you know.
I've been to Miami. It's on my
it's on your list. Well, you'll get there probably in the next few months. Yeah. Casablanca is sister cities with Chicago.
Is this local government, or is this something that general citizens can join and be a part of, so that they can?
It can be both. Yes. Yeah. So I'm just going to use your hometown. I'm just using Durham.
Okay.
Durham has several committees. I'm trying to get them. So you could get involved with any of those. Now, there's about 6 models for sister cities. Most of them are what we call people to people. So if Nona Best was interested in the Arusha one and wanted to get involved, I would connect you with the co-chairs. One of them is affiliated with Bennett, and the other is my good colleague, Rhonda Pierce, who can tell you these are the things they're doing. They're doing computer literacy in the advisor. They have students in places like San Antonio, Texas, which has sister cities all over the world, but in Africa, it's with Namibia. They do municipal exchanges. So they may send the fire chief, or the fire chief from that area will come there and learn. But it is people to people, so to speak. But some cities do it from the city government, and then some people do it among committees, or some people have nonprofits too. Okay. And California has the most, and we have some really, really dynamic sister cities around. Ghana has the most US African sister cities. Okay. We have over 25, and that's because it's easy, it's English. So yeah, I'll be more than happy to share that. If people are interested, they reach out to you and they live in city X, Y. Not every city has the same. You make your decision on what sister city you want.
Someone is looking at this on YouTube and they were like, well, I want to know more about sister cities, or I want to get involved. Where do you tell them to go? Okay,
so we have a major website, meaning it's sistercities.org.
Okay.
So that's the best way. But if they want to know about Africa, my email address is sciafricaregion@gmail. Okay. And if they tell me they're interested, or let's say I live in or let's say I live in Los Angeles, because you're national.
Right.
What sister cities or what African sister cities do you have? Now, Los Angeles actually happens to have the oldest African sister city in the country, 53 years old,
Wow.
with Lusaka, So not every city has an African city. I don't want,
Right.
matter of fact, we need to grow, but we have a wonderful, and so we have kind of reinvigorated the Africa region. So some people do help with schools, clinic, like I said, the military change. Matter of fact, in North Carolina, we've started a partnership with the National Guard. The National Guard has outfits around the world, in particular different posts in Africa. So we're looking to build water holes. We do economic development exchanges. So I could talk to you a whole hour about sister cities itself, but that extends my Africa work.
Right. That's a lot of work. Okay, so you have Morocco coming up in 2022.
We have South Africa. Yeah, so we have South Africa in February. And then we have Morocco in May. And then I have a church group that's going to Ghana in July, because they want to make sure that some students can go. And they're actually going to Ghana and Senegal. And then I have another church group and others that are going, because people look at Ghana as a kind of Mecca, particularly with the slave castles in September. And then in October next year, I guess we're trying to make up for lost time. We do our inaugural trips in East Africa, which is both Kenya, just about 4 days in Kenya, but most of it is in the Serengeti, and we're going to Zanzibar. So that's why I have to rest this year, to get ready,
2020, you needed all that rest you got in 2020.
I did, hindsight.
Like you're getting ready to get real busy.
We have some trips this year, but to be honest with you, and most people, even if they're travelers, saying, we still trying to work through this protocols, the testing and the vaccination. Now, young people, they're going about, but people my age, many of them, we have people all over ages, but most of the people travel with me, I would say 35 and above. And we thought, out of respect to them, let's kind of work through the issues, or let the states or country, WHO. So we had a trip to Ghana this year, but we thought it was best to postpone it, because you still got to take, whether you're vaccinated, you still got to take the test.
Right.
There are still some places, even though they're not saying it around the world, that aren't as open as they were, because they hadn't had the following. So in Ghana, we go to Kumasi, which is the capital where the Ashantis. Well, most people go to Accra, and we do that too, but Kumasi's 5 hours. So they told me for the most part, those places are closed. So when we travel again, we want people to have that full experience. We don't want people to say, well, we can't go here because they're closed because of COVID. Right. So that's why we made those changes.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, Lorna, I tell you, it has been a pleasure talking to you. I always enjoy talking to you. I think you are amazing, accomplished young Black woman that I am honored to have connected with and honored to know. And it's just so amazing how we got connected through a total stranger and one email.
I know. It's good. And
stranger and one email, and have a friend for life.
And no, I don't want to leave without saying how much I personally and Global Linkages really appreciate the work and leadership that you've taken with Orange Farm in South Africa, bringing in your church and other folks, every time we go. And we were at Orange Farm in 2020. And I told them, if you're going to get engaged, you need to connect with our person in Garner, North Carolina, who's really taken the lead. So, I mean, the work you've done, the technical assistance, the funds, that's okay. We know most of our people are not going to be able, for a lot of reasons, to come back. But those like you who get that spark, and you get that itch, now you're bringing others. You're devotees, You're devotees.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Orange Farm I can't say it did steal my heart. And so we're still working on it. The school is coming along good. With COVID, we weren't able to do a big fundraiser last year, but hopefully we're going to be able to do something this year and, make our regular trip or donation in November. So we're still working on that. That's still true to my heart. So, but all thanks to you. I appreciate all your comments and compliments. Without you, it wouldn't have happened, but I thank you.
And without Rampie, we can't forget our Rampie.
Oh, Rampie, yep, Rampie. How's he doing?
He's hanging in there. He
Yeah.
also lost for those who were listening, Rampie is my assistant in South Africa. I'm very fortunate, but he lost his mother last year. I don't think from COVID. And, and as also his fiance had passed before as well, so he's helping to raise his daughter. So it's been a challenge, but so
Rampie is my ace because he's at the airport when I get there. There he is. He's ready.
Well, if things go well, I hope to be in South Africa and Ghana in October, just for a short visit. My visits kind of last a month, but my soul.
Then I'll know whether I can go in November.
Oh, okay, yeah, and they're starting to fly. They fly direct from Newark now. How lucky am I? Not to JFK.
Good.
But my soul needs to get to the African continent. It's pushing over a year and a half, because like I said, so
you're having withdrawals, aren't you?
Yeah, I need to be fed. I need to be fed.
So okay, we're going to end the interview, but we thank you so much again, Lorna, for your time. I know your time is precious and you probably got 2 or 3 more meetings scheduled for today, but I am so glad that you came on, and I'll be seeing and talking to you soon. And I wish you love, peace, and joy. Thank you,
Nona,
for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity.